What is healthy red in spiral dynamics? Hello, this is Shows on Infinity with the host Chris speaking, and today the question that came up recently in a discussion: what is healthy red, spiral dynamics red? Every color has a healthy part and an unhealthy part. When we think of red and talk about red, we usually think and talk about the unhealthy red part, the scary red part of powermongers, warmongers, psychopaths, and so on. But that's not the whole picture of red. Let's recap first what is a center of gravity that's necessary. A center of gravity is where you struggle most right now. It's not your strength, it's where you struggle most. It's the newest color that you have already reached, but that you're still trying to establish and explore. So for example, if you're centered in yellow, if your center of gravity is in yellow, that means you've already gone through all the previous colors of the first tier to some degree, to a minimum at least. And all the further colors, turquoise and following, are there as a potential, as a disposition, but not yet developed. But you can reach them in peak experiences. They're there already theoretically, but not practically. Practically, you're stuck in yellow. It's not an achievement to be in yellow, you're stuck in yellow. If you're stuck in yellow, if your center of gravity is in yellow, then it means that you're struggling with being a spiritual person in a material world. For you, spirituality is important. For the rest of the world, for the majority, it is not. That is the yellow center of gravity. That doesn't mean that the only color your psychology is operating in is yellow. It's only the predominant color and the one you're stuck in. All the previous colors, beige, purple, red, blue, orange, and green, are also active in your mind, in your psyche, but not as predominantly, because you're not worried about that so much. It's already natural to you. You've already gone through it to some degree. You might have to revisit them. A lot of spiritual people have to revisit red and orange. They might have skipped through it a little bit too quick. And may have to go back to it at some point, especially, or at least when you're going through coral, you will notice which first year colors you have not developed sufficiently. So you also have a red part, but you're not centered in it. What does it mean to have your center of gravity in red? It means you're struggling with the concept of red, with the topic, with the theme, with the meme of red, which is power. You're struggling with the concept of power. Who struggles with the concept of power? Two kinds of people. Firstly, children. Small children, usually between the age of 2 and 6. They're struggling with the concept of power. So they have to go through red. Later, as an adult, you might have to go through red again, but differently. Who else struggles with the concept of power? Someone who has a very, very weak personality, a very weak ego, or no ego at all. Which kind of adults do not have an ego? Narcissists and psychopaths. Cluster B personality distortion types. They don't have a real ego. They have a kind of an ego, a super artificial ego that they have created later. They were not allowed by their parents in that age of 2 to 6 to create a normal ego. So they created one later on that replaces that ego. That ego is very, very afraid. So it is very, very interested in power. So if you also have an underdeveloped ego, you might have to go back to red at some point and develop this to then later let it go. You need an ego first to let it go later in the second tier. Okay, so unhealthy red wants power for its own sake, because it thinks, the psyche thinks that's a solution. If I have enough power, then I can dominate others and then I don't have to be afraid anymore. Then what happened to me as a child can never happen again. Okay. Now, what's healthy red? Healthy red is exactly that. To learn how to set boundaries. To set boundaries to the outside, so that other people cannot overstep boundaries, your boundaries, and also that you learn how to not overstep other people's boundaries. People who have a helper syndrome, for example, codependence, they also have a problem with boundaries. They do not notice when other people infringe upon their boundaries, and they also don't notice when they do it to others, because they think, well, I'm just trying to help you. What's the matter? The matter is learning how to sense these boundaries in the first place. Other people's boundaries and my boundaries. You need to learn how to sense them and then act accordingly. Leave other people's boundaries alone and hold up your own boundaries. Most problems between people come into being by people not respecting their respective boundaries of each other. That's how problems are created. That's how wars start and so on. Wars are also a security issue. It's also about boundary, about physical boundaries, not about psychological boundaries. Physical boundaries. This is my country, this is your country. Don't cross this line, don't cross this border. Similarly, you also have borders. You have your skin as a border. That's one. So if someone is touching you inappropriately, or even worse, then this is, of course, not respecting your boundaries. But there are other boundaries, a little bit further away also. The energetical boundaries of the energetical body that is usually about 1.5 meters, about 3 feet away from you. And then there are psychological boundaries. If people mistreat you psychologically with words or even non-verbally, by, for example, ignoring you, that's also not respecting your boundaries. That's also a kind of war. That's also a kind of attack. And you need to learn how to deal with this. If someone is not being nice to you, but is attacking directly or indirectly one of your boundaries, being your physical one, your energetical one, your psychological one, you have to notice it and know how to deal with it. And also you have to notice that on others and don't overstep and attack their boundaries. For example, when you're tired or angry or sad, some people think they have license now to step over other people's boundaries and feelings. No, you don't. Guruji said that most people are stuck in their childhood. Somewhere between day 1 and year 10, that's where their psyche is stuck. It has not developed any further, and Freud and many psychologists have found out similar things. So healthy red is growing up and stand up for yourself. To not just be an anonymous part of the group, but to be your own, to develop your own thing, your individuality, your ego, yeah? We always talk about the ego as if it is a bad thing. It is sometimes necessary. It's very difficult to walk around in life and interact with others without an ego. So you need to develop one at one point, and if it's too weak, then you have to revisit this color and learn anew, or learn for the first time a little late, what boundaries are and how to set them and how to respect them. That's healthy red. And again, someone who is centered in red for a long, long time, people are sometimes centered in red for their whole lives, they have an issue with this. They have not been allowed to develop this as children, and now they're doing it in retrospect, but they're stuck in it. They think that power is the most important thing because they didn't have any as a child. It was not allowed to them. And now the pendulum swings in the other direction. And then they might even exploit or kill other people in order to feel powerful. And then some might move on to blue because they see, okay, there's more to that. There's more in life than exploiting and killing others and oppressing others. Then they go into blue and think about what justice is and rules, which is blue. And some stay in red because their artificial personality doesn't get it. What they need is serious psychotherapy and trauma therapy, but they usually don't go there because they feel too vulnerable, really, inside. And they're afraid that the psychotherapist doesn't respect the boundaries. We've been talking about chakras lately. The chakra of power and setting boundaries is the third chakra, which is often underdeveloped in many people because our society, it talks about individuality, but it actually doesn't further individuality a lot. Yeah. And a lot of spiritual people, they're very kind-hearted, but they're not very good at boundaries. So another way to put it, another terminology would not be Dyamics red, but third chakra. You have to develop your third chakra, heal your third chakra. And working on that chakra might help you also to complete your spiral dynamics red checklist. Yeah, I am willing and able to survive. Base check. I know how to set boundaries and respect boundaries of others. Red, check. I know that other people are important and not only me. Purple, check. I know it's important that there are rules and justice. Blue, check. Humans are gifted with technology. Orange, check. We need to save the planet. Green, check. I need to develop my soul and find my intuition and find my way in a hostile world while being oriented spiritually. Yellow, check. Everything is one and connected. And I want to find peers who also see the world like this. Turquoise, check. On the way to spiritual enlightenment, you need to check all these boxes, 12 boxes, 12 first tier and 6 first tier and 6 second tier boxes. You need to check it. You need this development. It's a psychological and on a larger scale, a sociological development. And you need to check all boxes. And remember, you do have all previous colors in you. You've been there at some point in the past. And you also do, as a theoretical disposition, have all further colors in you. They're just not active. You can activate them. So it's about becoming more and more complete and more adult. Now, spirituality is real human adulthood, not running around as a psychological child in an adult body. We all have all colors, and no color is better than another color. It's just the question, how developed is this color? Are all these colors? And ideally all of them will be fully developed. And you can go back. That was another question that came up again and again. Can you go back to previous colors if you have skipped them a little bit, if you went through them too quickly? Some people go very quickly through green and yellow. They basically go, I don't really know how that is possible, but some people manage to go from orange in a very short time turquoise. So they have to go back to yellow and green now and then to further develop this, to make them more stable. And some people have to go back all the way to red or even to beige. People who have an existential fear, who always think, okay, I'm going to die tomorrow. I'm going to be abducted tomorrow. I'm going to be killed tomorrow. I don't know if I'm still alive tomorrow. They either spend a lot of time in beige, or they have to go back to that again and again and again if that fear is not appropriate. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for liking. Put the thumbs up if you liked the video so that others can find it as well. Thank you for joining me as a Patreon. And thank you to all those who have already joined me as a Patreon. And thank you for subscribing. See you soon.